He thought he was handing me a future. I was watching a door close. It was late. Office cleaners had been and gone. We'd just finished a 3-week piece of advice, the kind of work where you just stop noticing what day it is. My boss turned to me. He was the practice group leader, the partner I'd been organizing my entire career around. He looked tired but pleased, and he said something along the lines of, "One day, this could be you. You could have my job, and you can go further than I ever could." He meant it as a gift. I remember nodding and smiling, saying the right thing, and underneath all of that, thinking, I don't want any of this, because I'd already seen it. The divorces, the drinking, the marriages held together by logistics. I'd clocked all of that as background. The moment he said, "This could be you," the background became the foreground. He was offering me a future, and I was watching the rest of his life come with it. I didn't have a word for what I was feeling that night. It would take me years, 2 failed exits, and 1 eureka moment in front of a blog post to find it. The word is optionality. This episode is about the asset most earners are destroying in the exact moment they think they're winning, what they should be building instead, and what nobody warned me about the day you actually have to use it. You've built the career, you're building the portfolio, you're close to freedom, so what now? Welcome to Life After Enough, money, meaning, and the life you design when work becomes optional. I'm Nick. I'm racing towards early retirement and figuring out who I become when the job no longer dictates what I do with my time. Let's get into it. Last week, I talked about the Sunday night test. That's the dread that shows up around 5 or 6 on a Sunday afternoon. Not because you hate your job necessarily, but because something in you knows the week ahead is going to take more from you than it gives back. We talked about what that signal is and why high earners are particularly bad at hearing it. But noticing it isn't a plan. If you took the test seriously last week, the natural next question is, okay, so what am I supposed to be building instead? If money isn't the answer, what is? Well, that's this episode. The answer isn't more money. It isn't a different job. It isn't a sabbatical. The answer is a thing most high earners have never been taught to measure, even though it's actually the asset they've been trying to buy without knowing it, and that's optionality. Optionality is the number of viable next moves available to you at any given moment. Moves you could actually make in the next 12 months without your life falling apart. For example, a junior associate in a law firm fresh out of training has high optionality. They can stay, they can leave. They can switch firms, switch jurisdictions, leave law entirely. None of it costs them much because they haven't built a life that requires the salary yet. But a senior partner, 15 years in, has low optionality. On paper, they're winning. Big salary, big title, glittering LinkedIn. But the mortgage is bigger. The school fees are real. The lifestyle has expanded to meet the income. And the skill set has narrowed, because that's how you become senior, by going deeper into one specialism. Try to leave and the maths just stops working. That's the swap nobody tells you about. When my boss told me I could have his job, he wasn't offering me an upgrade. He was offering me a trade. More money for fewer choices, more zeros on the pay slip for fewer rungs left to step onto. And most people don't price that trade. They just look at the salary and say yes. At the income level we're talking about, and if you're listening to this, you probably know what level I mean, the income itself starts destroying optionality. The lifestyle creep, the peer group, the identity, the way every conversation at a dinner party starts with, "So what do you do?" You stop being a person who happens to do this job. You become the job. And once you've become the job, leaving the job feels like a full-on existential crisis. I'm going to tell you what I did with the Sunday night feeling because it took me a long time to act on it cleanly, and the messy version is probably more useful to you than the clean one. So I left my law firm for the first time in 2012, 6 months in-house, then I came back, 18 more months as an associate, and then I went in-house for a second time for about 2.5 years. And then in 2016, I did something much more decisive. I left the in-house role to go climb Denali in Alaska and start an adventure fitness business. This wasn't a quiet career pivot. This was the dramatic, all or nothing, all in version. The one I'd been fantasizing about for years and the thing I thought I always wanted to do. Within about a year, I ran out of money. In doing all of that, I learned a cruel lesson. When you leave without optionality, you don't get freedom. What you get is a different cage. The first cage paid you well, but slowly took your soul. The second one was free of the soul tax, but it was running out of money fast. And the panic was its own kind of prison. I couldn't make the long-term decisions a new business needs because every decision was being made under financial duress. I was free of the law identity and trapped by the bank balance one instead. And I had to come back to law. Not because I necessarily wanted to, but because I destroyed my optionality by leaving without rebuilding the structure first. The lesson of that period, the one it took me years to actually understand, wasn't don't leave, but it was leaving isn't the move. Optionality is the move. The leaving is what you spend it on. I came back in 2017, consulting first, then a boutique law firm through to mid-2021. On paper, that period had everything optionality should look like. Time freedom, work from anywhere, no big firm hierarchy. The kind of setup high earners fantasize about when they're stuck in the partnership track at 5:30 on a Sunday afternoon. But it was the worst version of all of them. The work from anywhere actually disappeared the moment COVID hit. That part wasn't my fault, but the rest of it was. Because I needed the money, I'd come back from the adventure business broke and rebuilding, after all. So every hour the work from anywhere setup was supposed to give me back, I just spent on aggressive marketing and writing articles trying to keep the income up. The optionality then was just theoretical, but the cage was real. I had time freedom on my employment contract, but zero time freedom in the lived day because I hadn't fixed the foundation underneath. That's the surface story of the boutique years. Optionality on paper, but a cage in practice. And if I stopped there, the lesson would be make sure the foundation is solid before you jump ship and live off the portfolio. But that's not the actual story. The actual story is what happened underneath. Quick one before we continue. I send a weekly email every Monday morning that goes deeper than the podcast. It's not a recap, it's a separate idea, usually something more personal, plus a question to sit with for the week. It's free, it's one email, and you can sign up at lifeafterenough.com. Link is in the show notes. Okay, back to it. Somewhere in that period, between the marketing pushes and the income anxiety, I stumbled across a blog called Get Rich Slowly, then Mr. Money Mustache, and then Choose FI. And it was the most earth-shattering light bulb that had ever gone off in my head. Instant, eureka, sat upright kind of moment. Because here's where I was sitting when I found it. I'd already left law before, and it ended in financial collapse. I'd come back broke, scarred, and convinced I always needed law in my life. That the lesson of the adventure fitness business was that you can't actually leave. You can only stomach it more carefully. I'd effectively given up on my dream. I was rebuilding income because I had to, not because I believed there was a way out the other side. And then this group of fire writers I'd never heard of essentially said, there is. The path is high savings rate, broad index investing, withdrawal at 4% of a calculated number. Freedom on a date you control, not someday, but a specific year. I sat there in front of the screen and I could feel my brain reorganizing my life. Because what I was actually reading wasn't a financial framework. It was a permission slip. Fire was saying you can have the thing you wanted, the exit you tried and failed at. It's just a maths problem with a known solution. You just didn't have the maths back then. That was the moment optionality stopped being a feeling and became a system. So I've now come to believe that FIRE looks like a financial movement, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually an optionality movement. What FIRE actually does is it converts your high salary, the thing that's currently destroying your optionality through lifestyle creep and identity capture, into the funding mechanism for your future choices. Every percentage point you push your savings rate up is an option being added back to the board. The maths is mechanical. Save 50%, work 17 years to fire. Save 70, well, then you're going to work 8 or 9. Save more, work fewer. Each savings rate is a different door opening on a different timeline. And once you've seen it that way, you can't unsee it. The salary stops being the prize. The salary becomes the engine. The job stops being the cage. The job becomes the funding mechanism for the exit. Then the whole frame flips. I'll be honest, for me, it didn't fully crystallize as optionality until much later. In the moment, I called it fire. The realization that the real asset underneath fire was optionality came as I got closer to the number itself. And that's when I started noticing my decisions changing before I'd hit it. But the eureka moment in front of those blogs in the boutique years was where the dominoes lined up. In June 2021, I went in-house for a third time. From the outside, the least interesting move on the list, going back to a corporate role. The opposite of being bold. However, it was the most optionality creating decision I've ever made. Because for the first time, I was making a career move with the fire maths in front of me. 2 reasons it worked. 1, predictable income. After years of fluctuating billings, I had a salary I could plan against, which meant I could commit to saving 70% of it, which meant I could put a date on financial independence, a real one. The salary itself wasn't the asset. The savings rate the salary unlocked was the asset. And 2, visa. I'm an expat in Singapore. The job isn't just income, it's residency. Lose the role and you lose Singapore. So part of what I was buying with this role was the time and stability to think clearly about whether I want Singapore to stay part of the picture, and to put alternatives in place if I want to leave on my terms rather than the visa's. That's the version of building optionality that took me almost 20 years to understand. Use the high-earning role. Don't resent it. Don't romanticize it. Use it. Save aggressively. Build the parallel thing inside. For me, that's been this show. Something that doesn't require the law identity to survive. Leave when the maths makes leaving an obvious decision rather than a brave one. Now, like I do on most of my episodes, I also have to give you the counter argument against everything I've just said for a few minutes, because the episode isn't honest without it. When I first found fire, the message I heard underneath it was, you can have it all. The exit, the freedom, the life on your terms. And in a way, that's true. The maths does work, and the framework holds up to scrutiny. But the framework comes with 2 traps that the first read of the blogs doesn't warn you about. The first one is the cage we've already talked about, the high income that destroys your optionality through identity capture if you don't deploy it deliberately. The second one, though, is harder. The second one is the tyranny of too much optionality. Here's how this works. You build optionality, you get good at it, savings rate, side income, second skill, alternative path, second passport, whatever it is. And then somewhere along the way, you stop using optionality as a means to a choice and start using it as a way to never make a choice. Keeping your options open becomes the whole identity. The point of having options is the having, but not the using. And the years keep rolling around with the same Sunday night feeling because you never actually walked through any of the doors you spent so long building. I see this in high earners constantly, and I've done it myself. Run the fire numbers obsessively, optimize the spreadsheets to the 3rd decimal place, read every blog, calculate 3 different drawdown strategies, stay in the role 1 more year. 1 more year. 1 more year. The optionality grows, but the willingness to use the optionality doesn't. That's then not optionality. That's sophisticated avoidance. And I now just want to take a moment to get a little bit more philosophical for a minute, so stay with me. This is the part the spreadsheet can't help with, because your spreadsheet is perfectly happy for you to keep stacking headroom forever. It has no opinion about whether you're actually living the life the money was supposed to enable. But there's a really uncomfortable fact that sits underneath all of this, and it's so obvious that we spend most of our lives ignoring it. You're not going to live forever. That's obviously the most cliche line in any personal development conversation, but I think the reason it's cliche is that we keep saying it without actually letting it land. If you really sit with it, really sit with the fact that your time is finite and you don't know how much of it you have, then every month of extended optionality starts to look different. Because every month you spend accumulating more options is a month you didn't actually live the specific life the options were supposed to buy. At some point, the collecting of options becomes the substitute for living. And the question isn't really, do I have enough optionality anymore? The question is, what am I actually for? What's the specific thing the optionality was supposed to unlock? And when am I going to unlock it? If you can't answer the second question, the when, then what you're calling optionality isn't really optionality, it's just delay. Here's the harder version of that truth, and this one resonates with me the strongest. Optionality deferred indefinitely actually isn't freedom anymore. It's just a well-funded version of waiting, and waiting eventually runs out. So the actual argument of this episode isn't to build infinite optionality, it's to build enough optionality to make a real choice without panic, and then make the choice. The work has 3 layers. The first is a spreadsheet problem. What's the number? What's the savings rate? What's the date? Most fire content lives here. The second is an identity problem. Who are you if you're not the high earner? What gets you out of bed? What's the thing you're actually for? Most career content doesn't go near that one. And the third one is a time problem, because eventually the doors close on their own, whether you walk through them or not. The spreadsheet is the easy problem, the other 2 are the work. So I want to end this episode somewhere a little more uncomfortable, because I'm sitting in this as I record. Something strange can hit you when you're getting close to your fire number. You spend years building optionality, you learn to value it, you make sacrifices to grow it, and then one day, you're standing in front of the very choice you've been preparing for, the one where you actually use what you've built, and it's terrifying, genuinely terrifying, because for years, you've known you've had options, all of them. You're the high earner. You're employable. The next role is always there if you want it. And that knowing, even the parts you never used, is itself a comfort. It's the backstop. It's the floor underneath the floor. The moment you actually use optionality, you have to narrow it by definition. Choosing a door means closing the other doors. And after years of accumulating, that closing can feel like loss. In the context of my planned corporate exit in 2027, the question that keeps me up at night is this. What if this is a mistake? What if leaving this high-paying job is leaving the last ever high-paying job I'll ever have? What if there's a better version of this I should be doing instead, and the version I'm about to commit to isn't the right one? None of those questions are actually about fire. The fire part works. The numbers will be fine. The questions are all about identity. They're about whether I can let go of being the high earner, whether I trust myself to make the choice and live with what it costs, whether the version of me on the other side of the door is going to be okay with what got left on this side. And the strange thing is it takes the fun and excitement out of the decision. The thing I've spent years planning for and working towards and optimizing every spreadsheet for, the decision I framed in my head as the celebration at the finish line, when you actually arrive at it, the celebration might not be there, the relief might not be there. What could be there instead is fear, and the realization that the whole second half of this, the part that fire blogs don't cover, is emotional work. This is what the name of the show actually means, life after enough. It isn't just a brand, it's the work. The enough part is the spreadsheet. Hit the numbers, run the maths, and you're done. But the after part is everything that comes next. The identity, the choice, the closing of doors, the courage to use what you've built. The enough is what you achieve. The after is what you have to live through. Most fire content stops at the enough, hits the number, plays the celebration music, end of story. But this show is for people who got there and realized the hardest part hadn't started yet. And if you're somewhere at the same path, not at the number yet, but close enough to be thinking about what comes after, I want to be honest with you about this. The fear doesn't mean you've got it wrong. It means you've actually built the thing. The terror only arrives because the choice is finally real. The people who never feel it are the people who never get close enough to use what they've built. The fear is real. It's a different shape from any fear the spreadsheet trained you for, and it's not the kind of fear a savings rate will fix. That's where I am right now, recording this with the door I've spent years building in front of me, and a quiet voice inside asking whether I'm really going to walk through it. I think I am, I'm planning as if I am, but I'm not going to pretend it's easy. So here's where we leave it. Next week, I'm going to tell you about a $100,000 promotion I turned down at my current company, the heir apparent role I'd said yes to. 2 weeks later, I called my boss back and pulled the yes. 3 colleagues from London called me the same day to tell me I was being stupid. And here's the part I didn't expect. 2 years on, the same company might try and promote me again, this time without a process, on better terms, and in a way that can't hurt me anymore, like I think it would have done last time. That's what optionality actually does in real life when you build it properly. It doesn't just let you say no, but it changes what comes back to you and on what terms. The first no I made out of fear of the cage. The second decision, whatever that ends up being, I get to make from somewhere else entirely. Next week, the $100,000 no and the possible full circle that comes after it. See you then. Thanks for listening to Life After Enough, a podcast about money, meaning, and the life you design when work becomes optional. If this episode made you rethink your future, share it with someone who's starting to question the script too. You can follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Nick, and I'll see you next week as we keep building a life that's truly ours.